Okay. I'm Darrell and I belong to the Folk Men's Group, and we meet every other Wednesday at about 1:30 here, and anybody who likes to join us may do so. And today we've got a speaker here, a friend of mine named Ted Hellerud, who likes to ride a bicycle and did so. He spends his summers in Milltown and his winters in Thailand. And so then he went over to Laos and biked for a while. We'll tell you about it. Teddy.
Okay, thank you.
Catch those legs.
I haven't got any degrees in public speaking or anything, so and I didn't maybe prepare as well as I should have. I was kind of planning on following a website that my partner that rode with me has, but I can't bring it up right now, so I'll just do it my way. I thought I'd start by giving you a little idea what Thailand looks like. I don't know how many of you might have been there, but Carla has. But I've invited quite a few people, and she was the only taker so far in 17 years, so I feel like I failed at that. Anyway, these little bus stops, which we're looking at here, are pretty much all over the country. I don't know if you can get more than a mile away from one. And they're really handy for a bicycle. As you can see, if it's raining or something, I can duck in there, have my lunch, or make a phone call, or just cool off. So I'm going to show you a bunch of them, because they're in all states of repair and rebuild. They just keep... Somebody must run around the country building them, I don't know who. But most of them are the same design. There's a few different ones. I like this type better than the stairway because I can ride right in. I don't have to carry my bike. You know? Now, sometimes there'll be one or two people sitting there waiting for a bus, but this is the dry season, and basically they're not used. Here's one under construction. There was one here all made out of wood that rotted down, so they made this one all concrete. This is exactly 10 miles from where I live, so I go by here quite often. And this is fun. This is the one I used nearby, the one that was being built. And it's, you know, you can see this is an older structure and isn't quite so so beautiful, but eventually when it starts falling into the rice paddy, they'll build a new one.
What kind of wood do they use, Teddy?
Well, I honestly don't know what. It's pretty durable, but exactly which. I've talked to people that tell me about the wood they have, but I don't memorize the names of. You know, but what they use for some of this wood is so damn hard. I don't know if a chainsaw can cut it. You got to use metal cutting tools for it. It's really hard. And they make charcoal out of it, and that charcoal burns for hours and hours. Seems like it never disappears. So they have some pretty exotic wood. Here, this one's under construction. You know, I come by every few days, and you know, being 10 miles away, I start out at 5 a.m. and when I get here, it's around sunrise. Yeah, now it's finished. So that's a green one. Anyway, there's the sun coming up over there, and so this is kind of a common intersection when I go north. I've been riding about, to get ready for the trip, I would, you know, I started out not maybe in good enough condition to start on a trip where you do 50 miles every day, so I asked Joe. Joe has more experience bike touring than I do, and well, how do you know when you're ready? He said, well, do 2 days back to back, 50 miles, then you're ready. So I never did that, but I was pretty close. So anyway, that's the little, what do you call it, bus stops. I just kind of wanted to show you what sometimes happens at a bus stop, and get to my next, let's see. Here's, well, this is very near that one that's being rebuilt. I just came along and here's the guy grazing his buffalo in the canal, and I stopped and talked with him for a minute. It was, I'd never seen them. I don't know, the buffalo are, you know, they don't show up too good because they're kind of dark color, but you can get some idea. They're pretty big animals. Anyway, this is a Muslim area. Almost everybody here would be Muslim. There's a big Muslim community north of Bangkok. So anyway, one day I was sitting in one of these little bus stops and this character came up to me and didn't have much luck speaking English or Thai, but he insisted that I should follow him. It was Sunday morning, and he showed me on his GPS, and I could see it was 10 miles, and I figured it was his home. So he took me to his home, and there's his daughter and his wife. She wanted me to put my arm around her, so I had to do that. He had a whole table full of food, and they wanted me to eat. But I said, well, I can eat some things, but I was in the process of losing some weight, so I had to be kind of conservative. They seemed to understand that. Anyway, I never did get back to see him. That's the outside of his house. And he wasn't much of a biker. He rode very slow, 10 miles very slow, about 9 miles an hour. But I did get his phone number, and I should get back to him someday. Anyway, that's, now on another day I was in one of the same little bus stops, quite far away, not anywhere near where this other guy was anyway. And I managed to talk with this fellow a little bit, and I believe that was his daughter. I was about 30 miles from home, so anyway. Now this time I just stopped to enjoy some mangoes I had bought, and this friend came along. I mean, there's no house anywhere nearby. I'm out in the middle of what I thought was nowhere. Nowhere, and I got off my bike, and this cat, just obviously well taken care of cat and everything, but she just insisted on being my best friend, whether I liked it or not. And when I said, okay, you know, if you can stay on the bike, you know, but no, she wouldn't stay there. So when I left, she ran alongside the bike, and I rode about 4 or 5 miles an hour, and she was running with her ears laid back. And, you know, I said, kitty cat, it's 1 mile to the big highway, and it isn't going to work for you to, you know, at the speed you can go, we aren't going to make it. So I just didn't look back. But I kind of, we've got a bunch of cats at the factory where I stay, and we had some bad luck with big python just eating most of our cats. So we could use another cat. You know. I came back to this location 2 times. This is 25 miles from where I live, so it's a nice 50-mile ride. I go there. But I never found the cat again. I was going to do some cat napping if I could. You know. I brought a cardboard box with some holes in it. But anyway, she's well taken care of. But anyway, that's the kind of stuff that happens in Thailand. So now we'll get to the river. Now what happened about, well, when would it be, a year and a half ago, I met Joe Fincher. There's his bike. You'll see plenty of him shortly. I was near my home and I saw this farang. Now I live where there aren't any farang, that's what they call foreigners. Basically Europeans or Americans or Australians or whatever. I prefer to live in a place where I don't see any. I mean, I like to. So it's rare, quite rare. Anyway, so I stumbled back and talked to him, and we eventually met again. And then this year he had this idea to go down the Mekong River. And so I decided to do a little training and get in shape. And this is, some of the airlines got to fighting, and they decided to do it for free for a while. I don't know, but it's good for us. So this would be Nook Air. Nook is Thai word for bird, so bird airline. Okay. So this was our beginning point. We rode there that first day after we got off the airplane, Nong Khai. So now I'll go back to this is in Nong Khai. Now some of my pictures aren't in the order I'd like them in, but this is in the Nong Khai area. Now I gotta tell you that I woke up at 2 a.m. the morning we were gonna go with a sore throat. I mean, it was pretty sore, and I wasn't too happy about that. I'd had a little warning the afternoon the day before, just a tiny little tickle. I was out buying some final supplies, and I thought, oh, I know what this is. And at 2 a.m. It was real sore. Well, I'm going to go anyway, so I felt pretty good that first day. The second day, not so good. I had a fever, and I barely made it to the next town, and so we spent 2 days there just to make sure I was okay. So we had a little time to play. This was a ride. Actually, we rode 25 miles that day. We didn't have to wait for me, but it's nice to know you're not going to die out there in the highway in that kind of heat. You know, this would be 80 to 90 every day, that time of the year. So we stopped here and I showed Dale. He was our third guy. Just the week before I'd been in another part of Thailand on a rubber farm. They showed me how to cut rubber, so I showed Dale how to harvest rubber there. This was the next morning that we left, and the monks were out getting their food. I don't know. They do. I guess they do it every day. I mean, they must have been a pretty big temple there. So they just go down the street. People give them food. I don't know. You probably know as much about it as I do, but it's usually a morning thing. Joe has a fancy computer on his bike. It keeps track of everything, how many calories and this and that. I just had a speedometer, that's all I had. But Joe would send me a copy of what we'd done sometimes. Looks like 49 kilometers, 3 hours and 1 minute and so on. Anyway. This is kind of a typical place to stop for lunch. And actually, this is a little out of order. This is like 2 days ahead, but Joe rode by there, and about 100 yards ahead of me on a dirt trail. And when I came by, one of these ladies held up some noodles. And I caught up with Joe and said, hey, they want to feed us noodles back there. So we went back, and we had a great lunch. And it cost 60 cents. And because they don't see foreigners so often, you know, because bicycles, the main road is a ways away from here. And pretty soon all the neighbors, everybody wants to come and see you, and you know, it gets to be kind of a big event. Now this, we were planning on camping quite a bit, or you know, maybe half of the time. Well, the hotels were so nice and so cheap, we just didn't have much ambition to drag our tents out, but we had them. But that gives you a little idea. That room was maybe $15. And being sick, I kind of enjoyed having a bed. I wasn't sleeping very well. I felt, you know, I didn't get over the sore throat bronchitis thing until the trip was over. It stuck with me the whole time. But it was mostly at night that I felt sick. Couldn't breathe, and coughing. Riding the bike in the heat, that didn't bother me much. Okay, there's always a lot of temples to visit. Okay, here's, this was the best fish I think we had on the whole trip. They grill them in this part of the country with the heads on and everything. And Dale, he didn't like that, so he wouldn't eat the fish. So Joe and I got to have it all, which we didn't complain about it. Okay, this was just a bike trail. Some people say, gee, that's a narrow road. Well, it actually was a bike trail. And this cow, I don't think you can see the rope. It's quite a small rope she's tied with, but it was tangled up in a root. Somebody cut a little brush down, and she was tangled right up tight and couldn't get out to eat and that, so I untangled her. And omelet, I guess is what you'd call it. Kaijio is a Thai word. Mekong River. This was about day 4 or 5. Like I say, these are out of order. It doesn't matter too much. Very nice little bungalows. Quite cheap. I think this one was mine and that was Joe's. On the road, we came across a guy hauling a relatively big buffalo in a little trailer. And so we took turns getting our picture taken, but the sun was at a bad angle. Anyway, you'll see a little more of this later. We did camp one night on the on the Mekong River because we were a long ways from the next town, and it was getting late, and we were tired, and we passed a place we didn't want to stay at, and we were going to try to get to the next town. So anyway, we doubled back, went down to the river, which was quite steep. Once we went down there, we didn't want to come back out, so we had to stay there. And we found a nice place on the river here. Very, very nice. And a lot of fishermen access the river from this spot. So there were people fairly late at night and very early in the morning going down to their boats. And there was another stream came into the river right here too, so it was a confluence of another waterway. Okay, we met this guy, James. He's from New Zealand. He's a big guy. I look pretty small by these guys, but when we met him, he had been on the road 57 days with his bike. He'd been around quite a bit, and a strange thing, you know, we didn't plan to meet again, but we crossed paths with him, I think that's 5 times. It might have been 4, but it's at least 4. Once when we left him here, we went to Paksay, and like 3 days later, and Paksay is like 88,000 people. We're in a little area that's kind of for tourists, but Joe says, "Is that James over there?" You know, it was dark and up from here to the wall. And I turned around and said, "Well, I'm not so good with faces, but it sure does look like him from here." So I'm going to go over and see. And sure enough, there he was. We're not planning to meet again, and you know, running into the guy one more time would be pretty unusual. It was either 4 or 5 times altogether. Once at a bike shop. This picture is out of order, but I'll just show you. This was at Tatlo. I didn't get this into the right folder. These little girls, I think their mother put them up to this. You know, they'd run around with the waterfalls and that, carrying these bananas, and they seemed to know what they wanted for them, so I think they were for sale. And so I said, "Well, I'll buy them, but you gotta pose for your picture." Give you a little idea what the food's like there. This was probably, I'm not going to guess what restaurant that was. Okay. Sometimes we were near the river and sometimes we were several miles away on the main road. It's a big river. It's kind of low water at this season, but the biggest freshwater fish in the world lives in this river. It weighs about 1,300 pounds. And of course it's endangered because everybody would like to catch one. So if you get one, you're supposed to put it back. It's some kind of catfish. This is probably near the beginning of the trip there, and I believe that's the number of kilometers to Bangkok, and that's to another town. Pretty elaborate dragons. Huh? This is the third night, I believe, we stayed at a place called Mutmee, M-U-T-M-E-E. And they had a very strange system for buying your dinner and stuff. You just, you wrote on a piece of paper what you wanted and gave it to the cook. And I never figured it out anyway. It was kind of an honor system. You could come and help yourself in the refrigerator, but you're supposed to pull out the ledger for your room and write down what you had. It was interesting. The girl that was running it was from Switzerland. I think there's a picture of her here someplace. She wasn't the owner. She just, you know, this is about day 3 or 4, and there was this huge temple that everybody was very interested in. I wish somebody would explain a little more to me, but the monk that did this, he was quite an artist. And some of these structures are huge. And if you can read time, well, that one's not focused, so we won't even look at it. But that's the Thai writing, you know. My friends in Malaysia, I said, I didn't know anything about Thailand when I was first in Malaysia. I said, they've got their own alphabet. And I said, what does it look like? And my Chinese girlfriend said, it looked like worms. But I believe we had to pay about $1 or something enter this this area. So we had to stick around and see everything, take a picture of it, get our money worth. But there's a story, you know, all these have some historical significance. Oh, by the way, these are exactly the clothes I wore on the trip, including the hat, except my hat was a green one. And I just put this shirt on and I dug in my pocket and I got Thai money. Last time I wore this was in Thailand. No, this is a size too big. But when I started the trip, I was a size bigger. So. I bought 2 big shirts and 3 smaller ones, and now I wear the small ones. But I put the big one on today just so I'd have the. I believe I just had 2 yellow ones this size. Anyway, this is kind of. This place is kind of spooky, really. But if you know a little bit more about Buddhism and can read Thai, it's very interesting, I'm sure. Okay, that was just a pile of rocks. I don't know why I took a picture of it. There's the rubber tree that they cut that every day and get a little bit of latex, you know. You cut about 1/3 of the way around, then you move to another part, and then eventually you can start over again here. If you've ever seen rubber plantation. Most of the trees they grow for rubber now are of a smaller species. Years ago they had a much bigger tree that was very good for lumber. So at the end of the productive rubber life, they'd had a big crop. Rubber wood makes very nice furniture. I don't know what they do with these small trees because they never get real big, but they produce better. So we put our bikes in the room at night usually, and sometimes wash some clothes and hang them up on a rope. That's the laundry system. You sweat a lot, and usually just a good rinsing is all you really need. You know. This is the most northeast you can get in Thailand, I guess. I went past here a few miles, and then Joe called. He'd driven in here, and I went by. You know, we weren't together on the road. So, you got to come back. Well, Dale, he didn't want to ride back 5 miles, but I did. So when I came back here, Dale decided to just rest while we had a look across the river into Laos. And this little person I thought was too cute to not take a picture of. I'm not sure. This scaffold, I think, was for launching some rockets for some festival. We finally asked some people what it was, and as I recall, that's what it was. This is the kind of thing you see along the road pretty often. You know, if you're not hungry, there'll be another one pretty soon, and you can get most any kind of fruit and vegetable right on the road. I kind of like this system. I think this is a different one, unless it's that one from the other end, but it doesn't look as big. This was a much bigger set of scaffolds, and they're tearing it down, but this was huge. Now to go across the Mekong with electric power, I'm not sure who's selling power to who. I assume Laos probably has extra power. They span the Mekong with a big high tension line. I think this one and the other one are 3/4 of a mile apart. And I don't know if you can get this thing is really tall. Yeah, I never saw a tower that tall with electric wire. This must be at the hotel, but which one? Yeah, well, it was along the way. I remember this spot. Joe likes coffee, so if you can get him to ride more than an hour and a half at a time, you're doing good. I prefer to ride, I'd like 2-hour stops, but he's more likely to do 1-hour stops. I'm just getting into biking good, and my body is all evened out. I've managed to forget all the pain below my waist, and then coffee. But I don't complain because I've got to have a partner. I don't think this is Mukdahan. It's a town before. I didn't memorize all the towns. Anyway, a very big temple and extremely friendly people. So we had to, walk around and take some pictures. It's an important place. And I had a woman approach me and talk to me for quite a long time. I didn't get a picture of her, but this picture I have to ask about. I haven't done it yet. I'm very interested in that. And I see Joe has a picture just like it, or maybe I sent him this one, I don't know. Just who this guy is, I'd like to know. Thai people don't seem to like him too well. I have some ideas, but I'll keep my mouth shut till I know the truth. Yeah. Fish is very good food for biking. It's better than noodles, and fish with enough fat on them. Seems like the energy is available much quicker. This is a bridge. I think they have 3 or 4 of them now, called Freedom Bridge, from Laos to Thailand. I think there's one near Nong Khai, and this one would be near to Mukdahan. Quite nice bridges. This is Dale here. This is about the time he parted company with us. His wife had said, oh, I'm not plugged in here. Let's see what went wrong.
Maybe the outlet strip isn't turned on.
Oh, that's it. Yeah. It was on, but I guess it got turned off because I saw a light on it earlier. Yeah, his wife said she didn't want him going out of the country. I don't know. He and Joe didn't get along perfectly. Joe would tell him to do things, he wouldn't always do it. And then he always had to, well, Joe's a recovered alcoholic, and this guy likes to drink beer every night. I think that doesn't go so good. So one morning he just announced he was heading back. And he did pretty well for not training much, but he's a lot younger than we were. He's in his mid-50s. Yeah, this is, I don't know how those pictures got put in twice there, but I guess they did. I threw my hat on the bed. No, we haven't crossed the river yet. This might be the same, okay. Yeah. We got to a town and had a hard time finding a motel. They were having this festival. They have it every 2 weeks, I guess, all the time. We found a little place and they had one room, so we decided we'd take one room, share a room. First and only time we tried that. And while I was paying the money, the guy that had reserved the room in the morning showed up. But, he didn't, because he didn't show up in time, he didn't have a place to stay, so we felt a little bit lucky. Stole that one, the only remaining room within any kind of walking distance. Anyway, they had quite a festival. Lots of dancing, singing, selling every kind of food, and they, so we got to see it, and Joe talked to a lot of people there, and okay, here's a little better view of the bull. And I guess the farmer said he was on the main road when we met him. We chased him down this dirt trail until we caught him, because these tractors go pretty fast. They can hit 30 miles an hour if the guy is crazy. It's just, this is the steering wheel here, and it's just these two wheels. I got more pictures of those. Anyway, he said the bull was upset because there was a cow over here, and I guess he's used to being hauled around for breeding purposes, and when he stops and sees a cow, he's not happy to stay in the trailer. So he said he had to get going. I didn't see the cow. This was where we could have stayed, but we didn't want to, and before we camped. I showed you the campsite, but this was before the campsite. They call it 3,000 Rocks, and I don't know too much about it. You could take a bus down a road and see some things down there. It cost quite a bit. It's a tourist spot, and there were a lot of people, so we weren't interested. We found our own place on the Milltown. That's where this is it. A lot of people had their boats tied up here, and like I say, they went out at night, or came in at night, went out early in the morning. And the local people told us it was fine, we could go there. And it was a good thing because there was a couple temples nearby, otherwise we were planning to camp at temples where we might be under a roof and maybe get some electric power to charge our phones and so on, because we didn't have much ability to recharge our batteries, and keep our phones going. I did go swimming there. I mean, it was pretty scenic, quite a bit of rock climbing if you wanted to do that sort of thing.
So the river looks flat all the time. Was it very windy ever? Or does it...
Well, really low water now at this time of the year. As far as wind goes, no, it isn't very windy there. Well, the next place, my air conditioner didn't work, and I couldn't reach it. It's way up high. I had to go out and get some lawn furniture, and everything was made out of cement. And how in the hell? If I can just get up to that thing, I think it probably just needs to have the filter cleaned. Well, I finally found enough chairs and piled stuff up and got it apart, and yeah, that's all that was wrong. Got the dirt out of the screen and got air conditioning that night. Next morning, this temple is nearby. This is the biggest gong I think I've ever seen. You can see the bicycles down here. That thing must be 60 feet high. And It was a pretty scenic place, so we strolled around a little bit, and they had all these driftwood, artistic display. And from the temple, you can see the town down below. It's up on the hill.
These towns look quite prosperous and kind of nice. Is that what the country is like? Or?
Well, this would be the north east part of Thailand. Khon Kaen is a much more industrialized kind of place. Here, it's I don't really know what their economy is like here, but it's fairly moderate. It's maybe more agricultural and a little bit of tourism. I don't think much industry in this part of the country. This is fairly early in the morning and a kind of cloudy morning, so looking down the river from the temple. So that's the direction we're headed. Okay, Joe wanted me to take a picture of him on this dam, so I did. Can't remember the name of the dam, but it's a power unit here. With the low water, I don't think there's much output, because that's the high side. But you can imagine in the rainy season, this is probably pretty full of water. A couple of Chinese tourists. That's my bike right there. We probably have crossed into Laos because there's a lot of cows on the road and buffalo. Yeah, that's the most common kind of truck you see is a tandem axle truck pulling a trailer with a tandem axle on the back. So I think when you count it up, there's 22 wheels. When you got no shoulder and they pass you, you feel like there's at least 22 wheels. And the motorbikes, the trucks, and there's the buffalo. He's on his way somewhere. I guess he knows where he's going. It's funny that works so well. You got cattle, goats, everybody's on the road, and doesn't seem to. I did see a lot of dogs that got killed this past 6 months, but I'd never seen it before. I saw 4 or 5 of them, and I saw a cat get hit. But otherwise, for years and years, you just wonder because there's an awful lot of dogs, and they sleep on the road. A lot of times you got a driver on them, they won't even move. But I believe this is. Might be oh no, this is Pak Song. Okay, some of this might have been just food, but I think it's Pak Song. Okay, from Pak Se, which is where we met up with James for the 2nd or 3rd time, to Pak Song is 31 miles, and normally that's a short day, but Pak Se is 300 feet above sea level, and Pak Song is about 4,000. So of the 31 miles, 30 miles is uphill, between 3 and 8%, and took 5 hours, and we met a few other people on this part of the trip. If I just have to say that little 31 miles separates the men and the boys. there was 3 guys from Australia. They were going back tomorrow. They weren't going to stay. Well, they missed out on the best part of the trip, but they didn't like 5 hours uphill in the dust and the heat. And then they looked around this town, and there's just one dirt road up the middle of it. That's all it is. No, they said they had enough. This was my room and Joe's room. We carried our bikes up there. Anyway, nothing to see here, but then things get interesting. So it's the next day, I believe. It's a big coffee plantation and tea and coffee. Anyway, big company had a lot of land there, and they had a coffee shop. Imagine that. So now we're into some kind of mountainous area here. And I thought when we got up to 4,000 feet, we were just going to kind of ride around at 4,000 feet. No, it's up and down and up and down. You better learn to like hills. This is my kickstand. It's a piece of PVC, and Joe has a fancy little kickstand on his bike where when it comes down, 2 little legs come down, and my bike did fall down once on this whole trip because the Velcro that I locked the brake pedal with, the sun heated it up too much and it let go. But his bike was down like that, I think 6 times. So we had to give him a hard time, because my kickstand costs about 25 cents, I tried to buy one like his, but they didn't, they were out of stock. That's a good thing. So I should go back to the map maybe and show you where we are here. Okay. This is Pak Se and Pak Song. Okay, this is the 31 miles uphill. And now we're going around to this location. Now the place we stayed isn't on the map, although I suppose it's, I don't know, it's in between these. It's on this river, I think. Yeah. Very scenic in Laos because of the rather mountainous terrain, and like I say, if you don't mind going uphill, downhill's okay, of course. Joe hit 60-some kilometer per hour, which is over 40. I never let my bike go over 40 yet. I'm a little bit scared of that. Lots of cows on the road in Laos. And they just seem to know, eventually they need to cross the road, and they do. They take their time and nobody runs over them. I don't know, where the farmers are or what, but I guess the cows just go out, they graze along the road, they come home at night. I don't know, that wouldn't work in this country, but it works over there. And I think we're at the next town up after Pak Song. That would be, I was sitting in a restaurant looking across the river there. So the next day, here's some people. Joe got a nice picture. That's